The Securities and Exchange Commission is going after TFL and Do Kwon. Let's talk about what this might mean for the future of Terra Luna Classic. Currently, Terra Luna Classic is down roughly 4.5% on the day. You can see as soon as this news came out, we just went straight down. Now, this right here is a press release from the SEC about their actions against Do Kwon and TFL, and I'm going to talk about what this could mean for Terra Luna Classic. Now, this first sentence starts off with a banger. They say that TFL and Do Kwon orchestrated a multi-billion-dollar crypto asset securities fraud involving an algorithmic stablecoin and other crypto asset securities. Now, some people are saying, oh, well, TFL is not registered in the United States, and so the SEC doesn't have any authority. And I'm not an expert on international extradition treaties or anything like that, but given the fact that they're in Singapore, doesn't fully exempt them from action by the SEC. Now the first thing that they highlight here are the M assets. Now, these are essentially security-backed assets that are supposed to be mimicking or mirroring the securities or the US traded companies. They also highlight Terra USD, a crypto asset security referred to as an algorithmic stablecoin. And it maintained its peg to the dollar by being interchangeable for another of the defendant's crypto security assets, Luna. This is where we need to clarify something. A lot of people are thinking, oh, well, they're talking about 2.0 because the ticker is Luna, but that's not actually the case. When we go back to the original collapse before Terra Luna Classic was called Terra Luna Classic, when we look at the history here on the timeline, we can see something very interesting. The old Terra blockchain remains functional and the token will be named to Luna Classic or LUNC. And so while they kept the previous name of Luna and then made the new Luna token, we still are what they are talking about in this scenario, because they are talking about the cryptocurrencies from this time period, from April 2018 until May of 2022. So they are referring to what is now known as Terra Luna Classic. This is where we also really need to emphasize that they are going after Do Kwon and TFL, not the investors in what is now known as Terra Luna Classic. I've seen that misunderstood on the internet a couple times today. They're not coming after us as investors. They are coming after the people who supposedly did these wrong actions by creating the cryptocurrency and failing to represent it correctly. The SEC chair actually said, we also allege that they committed fraud by repeating false and misleading statements to build trust before causing devastating losses for investors, and that was the collapse. They also seem to allege right here that TFL actually tried to hide evidence or prevent them from obtaining evidence, which is kind of a big claim here that TFL was not willing to cooperate and they wanted to hide certain aspects of their business. And one of the most important takeaways that we can have here is that today's actions not only holds the defendants accountable for their roles in Terra's collapse, which devastated both retail and institutional investors that sent shockwaves through the crypto markets, but once again highlights that we look at the economic realities of an offering, not the labels put on it. This is so important because people will say, oh, well, it's a cryptocurrency, it's not a security, or it's an NFT, it's not a security. They don't actually care what you call it at the end of the day. They care what does it look like. And this is where we need to talk about something called the Howie Test. The Howie Test is basically used to determine if something is an investment contract, which should be a registered security. And this requires 4 simple elements: an investment of money in a common enterprise with the expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others. And this sounds a lot like a lot of the cryptocurrencies out there, and even some NFT projects that promise royalties or things of that nature. And I used to bring up this point quite a lot when I first got into cryptocurrency, saying, wait a second, a lot of this looks like securities. This is probably going to become a problem in the future. And a lot of people said, no, you're crazy. You don't know what's going on. The SEC doesn't care about cryptocurrency. But I spent over $20,000 on lawyers when I was trying to set up an investment fund and realized a lot of these different things and learned a lot about how the SEC actually deals with regulation. So I've been saying for a while, just what the SEC is saying right here, that they most likely don't care if you call it a cryptocurrency, if you call it an NFT, whatever you put the label, as long as it acts like a security, they are going to try and regulate it. It also says, as alleged by our complaint, the Terraform ecosystem was never decentralized nor finance. It was simply fraud propped up by a so-called algorithmic stablecoin, the price of which was controlled by the defendants, not any code. And this is kind of interesting because we just passed the Ziggy proposal recently, which is trying to re-enable an algorithmic stablecoin, but not only re-enable it, but also intentionally manipulate the price of that stablecoin to match what we want it to be. And it's going to most likely be done by code, but it's still artificially controlling the price, which is potentially a major red flag that we need to reevaluate now. Now, this could actually be good for Terra Luna Classic if the SEC comes out and says, you know what, the current Terra Luna Classic is separate from TFL. Do Kwon doesn't control us anymore. We are our own things, and so we can continue as we are, but they could continue pursuing Do Kwon and TFL on the side and just kind of exempt us from that pursuit. However, we definitely should try and learn from what happened and not repeat it, because if the SEC does take another look at Terra Luna Classic and says that we are a problem, it's going to be very difficult for us to get institutional money in here. So hopefully we can get the SEC to give us the stamp of approval, give us the all clear and say that we are not an issue here with the current Terra Luna Classic ecosystem, but we need to make sure that we avoid some of the red flags that they highlighted in their letter. And if we do get great news from the SEC, it could be massive for Terra Luna Classic. And if you want to learn what that potential looks like, check out this video up here, and I'll catch you all in the next one.